If I said to you, April 3rd, 1969 was one of the most important or tragic days in human history.
Yes.
What would you say?
I would agree with you, because that's the date that Paul VI released his Apostolic Constitution, Missale Romanum, that published the Novus Ordo Missae, or at least it announced that the Novus Ordo Missae was coming, and that it would be obligatory starting on the first Sunday of Advent in the year 1969. And so what that document represented was nothing less than a massive rupture from really 16 centuries of Roman Catholic worship. And it's unbelievable, because a pope never had a pope dared to do such a thing, to replace the rite used by the Latin Church, especially the Roman rite, with another committee constructed rite, loosely based on the preceding one, but also mingled with a lot of extraneous material, rewritten. In all sorts of ways, it's a novel product. It's a novus. It's a new thing. It's really, I think that in a way that date is one of those infamous dates that we need to understand, that the situation in the Catholic Church in the past 60 years or so has been marked by ruptures on all kinds of levels, right? There was rupture in religious life. Everybody started abandoning their habits and their rules and their divine office and their whole way of life, and these religious orders collapsed. Catholic education collapsed. The universities, the colleges, they betrayed the faith. Land O'Lakes Agreement. The priesthood, the secular priesthood, the diocesan clergy, there was a plummet in the number of clergy, and marriages, baptisms, basically every aspect, every measurable aspect of the Catholic Church has been in continuous decline since about the 1960s. There are complex theories about why the declines happened. It's not simply the fault of Vatican II. It's not simply the fault of the liturgical reform, but those things didn't help to prevent the declines. And in many ways, they seem to have accelerated the declines. If you just step back and look at this situation as a whole, you ask yourself, if I was running a corporation and the corporation had experienced something like a 50% loss in customers, in employees, in everything, you'd say, this is a disaster. What's going on here? We've obviously taken a wrong turn. We need to figure out what the problem is. Somebody told me that the whole debacle over, the new Coke and the classic Coke, that was only a matter of 3% loss in profits. And that was enough to make the company realize they had made a mistake and go back to the classic, right? Yeah. What would it take for the Catholic Church, or for the leaders of the Catholic Church, to say, we need to go back to the classic Roman rite? That's what we need. We shouldn't have taken this turn on April 3rd, 1969.
Well, let me ask you this then. Were the reforms successful or a failure? Because what I mean by is, what was the motive? What were they trying to accomplish? If there was a true invasion, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Infiltration.
Yeah. Then were they successful? Are they achieving the metrics that they want?
Yes. Well, of course. As a scholar, I want to take everyone as a man of goodwill. Excuse me. And so if somebody being a liturgical reformer from the 1960s says that we need to change X, Y, and Z in order to increase the active participation of the faithful, I'm going to assume that they really mean that, unless I have strong evidence that they're actually a plant from the communists or the Freemasons or something
Which did
like that.
happen.
It did happen. It's just that it's not always easy to know who those people are.
Sure.
And it's also, as Dom Alcuin Reid likes to say, it's also, you can explain what people did and said without invoking a conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not against conspiracy theories because, as Roberto de Mattei says, there are plenty of real conspiracies in history. He actually wrote a whole book about it called The Paths of Evil. Fascinating book about all the real conspiracies that happen in history and that we now have documentation about, and we can understand what happened, like the Bavarian Illuminati and so forth. But my point is, if you can understand what went wrong, simply assuming goodwill but bad ideas, or the wrong prognosis, the wrong diagnosis, then you might as well do that. And I think that even if we assume that the liturgical reformers, men like Annibale Bugnini, Cardinal Lercaro, and the 300 or so scholars who worked on the Novus Ordo, we could just say they all genuinely believed, or they seemed to believe, that what they were doing was going to bring about a renaissance in the Catholic Church. What I find astonishing is the naivete in play. What I mean by the naivete is did really none of these people say to himself, if we change so much so fast, it's going to have a cataclysmic result, regardless of, even if in theory all of our ideas are good ideas, even if everything they were doing would be an improvement seen from some angle, there's a total disregard for how human beings normally operate, which is they're creatures of custom, they're creatures of habit. Catholics have been worshiping in certain ways for centuries. They'd been kneeling for communion, for example. They'd been hearing a certain limited number of readings at Mass that were excellently chosen for their moral and Eucharistic purpose. They had been seeing the priest facing east, in together with the people. These are the ways that the Catholic mind and soul had been formed for generations and generations, maybe in some cases forever, ever since Christian worship began. And could these scholars have not realized, if we turn all of this inside out in a matter of a few years, that is going to cause this society to tear apart into shreds?
That's a revolution.
Yeah, it is a revolution. Absolutely.
It's not a renaissance, it's a revolution.
Precisely. And so there, that is when, I have to admit to you, it wouldn't have been that difficult to have predicted what the effects of such a revolution would be. And that's why it becomes more and more plausible to ask, were some of these people intending a dissolution of Catholicism as they knew it?
Yes.
Because if that's what they were intending, they did a fantastic job. There's a great quotation from Dietrich von Hildebrand. It's a great quotation. It's a scary quotation, but he says, if the devils of Lewis's screw tape letters had been entrusted with the liturgical reform, they couldn't have done a better job.
Wow. Hey, thanks guys for checking out the Conor Gallagher Show. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, or comment, or whatever you got to do to support it. And I appreciate that very much.